Like a phoenix from the ashes. For a long time, Brexit and the corona crisis pushed British stocks into the basement on the financial markets. But now, the FTSE, pounds and gilts are suddenly booming. But can this be permanent? Hardly anyone would have expected that. Months ago, Great Britain was in the world like the economic idiot. Brexit threatened to lead to chaos and the corona pandemic had hit the island harder. Probably not entirely through no fault of the government in London than many other countries. But there's no longer any talk of this in the financial markets, and for a few weeks now, investments in the kingdom have suddenly been among the favorites of investors again, although, as I said in the video yesterday, they're cautious. The UK stock market, the leading index FTSE has increased by around 20% since November, similar to the DAX in this country or the S&P 500 in the USA. And the British pound? The question is how long not, and according to Bloomberg this year, the best performer in a basket of 16 major currencies that the Final Information Agency is monitoring. Against the euro, the British currency recently posted the longest profitable history since 2015, although it lost a lot since 2015. A pound was at times worth more than €1.16. That was last before the corona crash in spring 2020, but still much less than 2015. And what about the British government bonds, the so-called gilts? The hope of an imminent economic recovery has put bond prices in many countries under pressure in recent weeks, including the USA and Germany. In return, the yields on the paper rose, and that happened particularly strongly on British bonds. The financial markets are sending a clear message. They are expecting an economic recovery in Great Britain, which will be much faster than in the rest of Europe or anywhere else in the world. There are several arguments for this assumption. The uncertainty in connection with Brexit has largely subsided because the government of Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the end of 2020 managed to get an agreement with the European Union, almost at the last minute though. The pact also has disadvantages for Great Britain, writes Adolf Rosenstock, an economist from the Frankfurt investment house Sky Asset Management, in an assessment. But with all the negative consequences for the future of the British financial market, the fact that with the Brexit deal, the years of uncertainty about how and when to exit the market has disappeared, and it is now in the hands of Great Britain that it might be much more decisive because the conditions under which it wants to trade with the countries outside the European Union are now theirs. In the long term, as Rosenstock sums up a hope that other investors apparently share, Brexit could lead to stronger relationships with global trading partners such as China, India and the USA, although at the moment it doesn't look that good in those cases. But what is possibly even more important? Great Britain is now overshadowing many other countries in the fight against the corona pandemic. As a reminder, at first the country was one of those who was particularly badly affected by the pandemic, which could be seen, for example, from high infection rates and above average numbers of deaths. The British government of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, whose critics last year long accused him of not taking decisive enough action against the coronavirus, was possibly at least partly responsible. But the tide has turned on this issue too, mainly because Great Britain started a large-scale vaccination campaign much earlier than the EU countries, although Germany is overtaking the UK in case of second vaccination. And the result was, in the meantime, more than 20% of all British people have already received at least one vaccination dose. In Germany, this value is currently a little more than 5%, although the second dose have 4 times as many as in the UK. And while possible measures against the third wave of the pandemic are still being discussed in this country, a few days ago Boris Johnson announced that the lockdown would end and the economy would reopen in the summer of this year, although I can go and get a haircut earlier in 2 days. By June 21st, Johnson said in a speech in Parliament the British government wants to lift all restrictions on the coronavirus pandemic in England. Bloomberg economists have already worked out what this could mean for the British economy. Accordingly, companies on the island can almost expect a growth turbo in the second quarter. After a corona-related decline in economic output of 4.5% is expected for the first 3 months of the year, the increase from April to June could jump back to 7%, according to Bloomberg, if they only look at the corona situation. It goes without saying that this perspective is well received in the financial market. Even if Great Britain is one of the most severely affected countries in the pandemic, the faster immunization of the population and the lockdown exit presented by Prime Minister Boris Johnson will give the British economy significantly more momentum from the second quarter compared to the Eurozone as a whole, I must say. Also expects Tobias Frey, portfolio manager at the investment house Bandleon. But in this case, you must not forget, if you see the Eurozone as a whole, this might be true. But in Germany, for example, we do lift lockdown rules much earlier than in the UK, for example. As I said, I can have my hair cut on Tuesday. And my friends in the UK told me they have to wait a few more weeks to get that. And they don't look better than me at the moment with this. So you really have to look on the details. As I said, the second dose vaccination in Germany is 4 times higher than in the UK. And we will see if they can put up speed there with a second dose in the UK as well. So you have to have much more in your picture than just the limited stuff. And the experts I cited so far from on the financial market have only looked at the results of the pandemic so far and totally forgot Brexit and totally forgot to include the end of several transition periods that we are still in case of trade with the UK. And so there's much more to take into account than just the pandemic. But we will see. But let's see what the experts still have to say. In the past few weeks, this expectation drove up gilt yields twice as much. For example, 10-year bonds, and made the British pound one of the strongest currencies since the beginning of the year, says Frey in an assessment for the Manager magazine. The only question that matters is, how realistic are these prospects really? And should Great Britain actually come out of the corona crisis with such a head start, how long will the country continue to be ahead? The past 12 months in pandemic mode have shown that the virus, for example through mutations, can cause surprises. Long-term planning like that of the British up to June is therefore undoubtedly associated with a considerable element of uncertainty. In addition, other countries will probably also achieve success in the near future and possibly reduce the gap to Great Britain or make up for it completely. Germany, France and Italy will have caught up in the vaccination quota by the end of the summer, so that investors will again focus more on economic issues, believes Bandleon manager Frey. In particular, the sluggish British exports, which are suffering from EU customs formalities, as well as the British service sector, which is not part of the trade agreement, could limit further upward potential. In view of the future isolation of the UK from the EU, the kingdom is also facing a structural upheaval in the economy, similar to the deindustrialization at the beginning of the Thatcher era, said Frey. In short, investors looking beyond the coming summer may see that the UK's race to catch up in the financial markets over the past few weeks may have been justified. According to MindSky, for example, the London stock market is still moderately valued despite the recent price increases. It had lagged behind the international competition for a long time now. For further leaps upwards, new arguments should be found, or hard facts instead of expectations. And those nobody has told us about yet. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel and to my other channels. I'll see you on my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.